Now, I want us to talk about this whole issue of responsibility. It's usually common to hear that people say that governors are chief state security officers of their states. Security is everybody's issue. But where exactly is the line of responsibility?
I think we must as a nation, begin to understand the underpinning fundamentals of democracy, especially a constitutional democracy. A democracy is about choice, decision, the decision of the voter. That is what lies at the base of it, that we will only have the government that we desire by the exercise of our franchise. Now, to exercise the franchise, you have to be able to determine the quality of leadership at whatever level during the term just before an election. That means you must be able to determine the mandates that the Constitution prescribes for each level, because you can't determine whether a mandate is properly utilized or exercised unless you know whose mandate it is. So we must be clear about where accountability lies in whichever sector of our lives. Now, if you are talking about security, and then you break it down, because there are many aspects of it. There's national security, and I would say that Boko Haram is a national security problem. It's not a state, it's not Borno, it's national, nationwide. Then you have the basic local issues of law enforcement, traffic, robbery, murder, that are tried in state high courts. And so if you look at the Constitution, because that's the starting point, the Constitution confers the responsibility for the enforcement of law and order and the protection of lives and property in the Nigerian police force. Now, the Nigerian police force is headed by the Inspector General, who is appointed by the President, ostensibly in consultation with the Police Council. Now, the critical thing about any and all the armed forces, President, to the exclusion of all others, is the Commander-in-Chief. If you look at the police, you're looking at operational issues, deployment, essentially. The operational commander of the Nigerian Police Force is the President, by virtue of Section 9 of the Police Act. No other authority has those powers. Governance, in relation only to the police, not to the SSS, and not to any of the armed forces or the other agencies that we, in our wisdom, created as parallel. In relation to the Commissioner of Police of the State Command, the governor has such powers, has the power to give such lawful orders to that commissioner as any circumstances warrant. But those orders are subject to the CP having the power to refuse to obey those orders until he gets clearance from Abuja, from not the IG, from the minister charged with the responsibility. The president, when you have a minister of police affairs, it's really a delegation of the president's constitutional powers, right? So you can see that it's a very limited mandate, extremely limited. And the police don't have to wait for any order. They are already charged by the... In fact, I find that provision rather superfluous, because the police are bound to enforce the law, whether they are given the orders or not. It's a continuing mandate. Now, you mentioned Chief Security Officer of the state. It's a nominal title. It's an inheritance from the military. There is no reference in the Constitution to that office, its functions and its powers, nor in any other statute, in any of our statute books. So it's a nominal and almost meaningless title. It was useful during the military era when, if you were a military administrator, You were essentially the first line of defense against coups. So it was expected that if a coup was being hatched in your state, then you would be, and then of course you took responsibility for all other security functions, right? But that was under the military with a centralized command. This is a constitutional democracy. So you cannot foist on me responsibilities that the Constitution does not. The governors are compelled, being the most visible political face in a state, are compelled by the anemic funding of the police by the federal government, and it is their obligation, budgetary. You know that to pass a budget appropriation, you can only appropriate money in terms of what the Constitution prescribes as your duty. You understand? So under the exclusive list is the police, and therefore all appropriations to the police are made by the National Assembly. Now, prior to the underfunding of the police, you never heard about states purchasing equipment for the police. This was a federal mandate. But I think we need to do a little more thinking in terms of what needs to be done. You must build, look, when I was prosecuting, the experts that I used to put in the witness box, the ballisticians, the handwriting analysts, the blood work people from Oshodi research, they were A1 in competence, first class, and they confounded defense counsel when it came to cross-examination because they just knew their stuff. They had the equipment, they had the training, the retraining, but like I said, we went, we went regime security. That's what we did. Forgetting regimes that think that a guard behind you is your strongest is wasting their time. You need to have, you should be able to walk around as president, walk around like Obama does, without any, they are watching, but nobody knows. He goes and eats a hamburger in, some downtown Washington. Is he less secure than any president with 1,000 guys surrounding him? Certainly not, because they built this capacity. They can see, they can hear, they are looking, they've got training, they can move, like the wind, so that if anything does happen, before you know it is out of there. So it's the perception that, capacities. We need forensic capacity. Look at the Oscar Pistorius trial. When last in Nigeria did we have a trial where we had that number of experts and that level of analysis? And we had it before. That's what troubles me. I'm troubled by the dumbing down of our approach to things.
Because of the lack of funding.
Yeah, it's not, no, you see, the funding is the tool. The first thing is the determination of what the problem is, properly. Not just be setting up committees and setting up committees. These things, I don't need a committee to know what police in a modern state needs. I just go to Google. There's so many examples. Just get a special assistant to go and do the research and then distill it down, localize it, because everybody's problem is slightly different, and give me a plan. And then we start to develop it and fund it, and it's not overnight. Now we've lost so much capacity that it will take us decades to get back to the point where we can say we have a modern police service.